Welcome back to the channel. On this channel I review products and give information on them, and then I give them away. Today I'm going to show you how you can use a Raspberry Pi as an audio streamer. Now this can be quite useful when you want to have a higher quality audio playing over your sound system. Most people hook up a Bluetooth speaker and play from their phone. The quality on that when you use Bluetooth is not very good. Before I start, I'm going to show you what possibilities there are. So you've got all of these different streamers. The first one, Volumio, is quite easy to install. The application is easy to use, although it could be a little bit more intuitive because it's actually a web interface app. The UI looks really nice, but it's really unstable, and I find myself constantly having to pull the power out and plug it back in. Mood Audio is a bit better. The installation is slightly more complicated. The application use is a little bit more complex, but the UI looks really nice and it's a little bit more stable than Volumio. Then there's piCorePlayer. The installation here is quite difficult because it has some components that you as the user you have to understand them to be able to set this up. And that's actually why I'm doing this video today, because it isn't very straightforward. The use of the application is a little bit more effort, but not too bad. The UI is really, really ugly. It can be improved with the skin, and as well as that, when you use an application on your phone, then this is irrelevant because it depends on which application you choose. In terms of stability, it's really, really stable. I've never had an issue with it, and it's really fast. It's super fast to boot up. You can run piCorePlayer on any Raspberry Pi. Volumio and Mood, I struggled to get running on anything before a Pi 3. So piCorePlayer really is stable and solid and not very resource intensive. Then you've got Max to Play and Rune Audio, which is now turned into R Audio. I've never tried either of them. Maybe I'll do that in a future video. So I'm going to do a series of videos revolving around this streaming music via the Raspberry Pi. The first one is just to give an introduction to the piCorePlayer and show you how to set it up and how you can use the onboard digital to analog converter, or DAC, to output audio via the headphone jack to an amplifier. In the next one, I'm going to try and improve the audio using a DAC hat, which is just an extra piece of hardware that goes on top of the Raspberry Pi and then does the digital to analog conversion on that hat and then sends off the analog signal to an amplifier. I'm also going to give that away. After that, I'm then going to have a digital transport, which is going to take the digital signal and send it off board via Toslink optical or a coaxial connection to an external DAC, and on that external DAC it will then change the digital audio signal into a analog one to be played by the amplifier. And I'm also going to give that away. And while I was looking for these cheap devices on AliExpress, I also noticed a few of these power filter devices. The idea here is that they're supposed to filter out a lot of the electrical noise, which should make the audio signal much clearer and better. So I'm going to see if that makes a difference. So what we'll do today is I'm going to show you how to image an SD card with piCorePlayer and then and then boot it up on the Raspberry Pi 3 and then configure it. I've mentioned here Raspberry Pi 1, 2, 3 or 4 because the Raspberry Pi 5 has no headphone jack. Once we boot it, Then we're going to use a web browser on a computer to configure piCorePlayer via the network. After that, I'm going to show you how to set up a music source. In this case, it'll be a network attached storage or a NAS box which has music on it. And then I'm going to show you how you can use an application on a phone or tablet to control the playback of the music. And then of course we're going to plug it into some speakers and output the sound. So what you'll need is a network attached storage box, a NAS box. I'm not going to explain how you set that up. I'm not going to explain how you rip CDs to put the music on the NAS box. You have to find that somewhere else. I assume you've done it. A Raspberry Pi, an SD card, 1 GB is fine for piCorePlayer. With some of the other operating systems, Volumio for example, I think you need an 8 gig. And you'll also need the Raspberry Pi Imager software, which you can download from that link. And perhaps you'll also need a couple of cups of coffee. Now, when I was doing this for the first time myself, I really struggled to find information that was useful. And I struggled because piCorePlayer has a number of components, and people assume when they write information online that you already understand what those components do, but I didn't, so I didn't understand anything. So I'm going to give a brief overview of that now so that when you try and troubleshoot problems, that it should be much easier. So firstly, you have piCorePlayer. This is the operating system which has all the components grouped together. This is based on TinyCore Linux, which is a really stable and low resource Linux distribution that boots everything into the RAM, so it's super fast, super low resource, and super stable. And no problems if you pull out the power, for example. You've got Squeeze Lite. This component is all about sound output, and in our case we're going to just output to a headphone jack to the amplifier. Then you've got LMS. It was originally developed by Logitech, and it was called the Logitech Media Server, and they open sourced it, I believe, and it looks like it's now called the Lyrian Media Server, but people just say LMS. And this is all about how you manage your music library and how you play back the audio. We're going to use a browser to set up piCorePlayer and also LMS as well, the music library. Then we're going to use a web browser to control the music playback, and you'll see actually it's not a pretty user interface, so I'll then install an app on a phone and show you how that works so that you can play it via your app. So first, download the image from piCorePlayer.org. I'm using the 64-bit kernel because I have a newer Raspberry Pi, a Raspberry Pi 5. If you have, I think, a Raspberry Pi 3 or before, then you need a 32-bit kernel. It's a very small, compact system. Extract the contents to that directory. The second one is, you don't need to worry about that, it's an MD5 sum. And then you need to create the image using the Raspberry Pi Imager. So that's pretty straightforward. I'm using a Raspberry Pi 5. Operating system, scroll all the way down to the bottom. Use custom ROM, and then select the .img file that you've just extracted from the zip. Choose storage. My storage isn't working. There we go. and then choose the right one. Now I'll click next and I should be prompted if I'd like to apply custom OS settings. You don't need to, so just hit no. Do you really want to delete everything on the drive? Yes. Now I've been asked to authenticate. This, which I will do using my password. And then the writing starts. And I'll fast forward this. Finished. And now you can remove it and plug it into your Raspberry Pi. Okay, since I showed you the SD card imaging, piCorePlayer made an update to version 9.2, so I'm going to use that. I've now downloaded it and imaged it to an SD card, which I've put into the Pi. The Pi is plugged into the monitor behind, has a HDMI cable here, it's got a LAN cable plugged in at the back here, and power is delivered here, which is connected to a power bank. I'll plug that in, and you'll see it boot, and there'll be a few things on the screen behind. Now you only actually need the screen if you don't know how to get the IP address from your router. If you know how to do that, then you don't need the screen. So plug it in, and it will turn on. So on the screen, you can see there's a few things happening. And it will tell you somewhere there's the IP address. Right there. So now that we know the IP address, we're going to enter it into a browser. And the first thing you'll be prompted for is a password. So choose anything you want. I'm just going to choose password. Very secure. Okay, now we've done that. We're going to go to the main page up the top here. Now, because piCorePlayer is a very small image, it's 200 or 300 megabytes, it only partitions the SD card that way. Now, this is a much larger SD card and we need to resize it. Since I recorded the previous part, I found out that you actually need 5 gigs minimum to run LMS. So if you come down here to additional functions, there's an option, resize file system. So you can see here it's currently 200 MB. We're going to change it to 8,000, should be more than enough. And click resize. And now it's shutting down and restarting, and then you just wait until the counter goes down to nothing. And we're back. Now from here we don't actually need the HDMI screen anymore, so I'll turn that off and unplug it. We only needed it to get the IP address. Even most people won't need it. You can get the IP address from your router. So let's now take a look at Squeeze Lite. Now Squeeze Lite is the part that sends audio, the component that sends audio out of the system. And you can see here it's set to headphones, so we don't need to do anything now. In the next video I'll teach you how to use extra Raspberry Pi DAC hats. In the Wi-Fi settings, we can set up the Wi-Fi, and I'm going to set up the Wi-Fi so I can unplug that LAN cable because I don't want to use a LAN cable. So let's turn Wi-Fi on. So select on and then save. Okay, now it's on. And then you can insert your SSID. I'm going to blur my screen here so you can't see it. And then the password. You also need to enter the country code. For most people watching this video, that will be the US. But I live somewhere else, so I'm going to blur this. And then you hit save. I've also managed to get the Wi-Fi working with the USB dongle as well. That also works. Now, we don't need the LAN cable, so we're going to reboot. And as we reboot, we're going to disconnect the LAN cable. Here. So main page, I went to main page, and now we'll reboot. Reboot piCorePlayer, OK. And now I'm unplugging the network cable. So the network cable is unplugged. The IP address has changed because I'm now connected to Wi-Fi. It has a different IP address. So I'll quickly check that on my router. Okay. So its IP address is .1.125, which makes sense. Here we go. We're back now using the Wi-Fi to connect to it. So now we're going to install LMS. So we head over to LMS. And then it's not actually installed right now. So we need to install it. Click here. And it will download and install LMS. Okay. Yeah, now it's finished. So next, because we'll be accessing our music from a NAS drive, we need to access that NAS drive. First, let's start LMS. There's an option here somewhere to install and enable additional file systems. Okay. And now we can go down and we can mount a network share. So we're going to call this music test. This is where it mounts on the piCorePlayer. The IP address of the NAS box. Now the share name, this is the folder that it's going to be in. This is the highest level folder, and later on we can select a deeper level folder. So the username, share type is CIFS. You can also select NFS if you know how that works and if you've set it up on your NAS. So the username and password of this is the username and password of the user for the NAS box. So, and I want to enable that and click Set Mount Point. Disk mount error. Try to reboot. I'm not convinced. I'll reboot and try. Okay, and we're back. So after we've done that, we're going to go back to LMS and start the web page, the LMS web page. Now, if everything worked correctly with the mount, we should see it here. But I'm not convinced. No. There's a problem with the Samba share. I will stop recording, fix it, and come back. So I'm back. The next day I figured out what the problem was. My NAS server was broken. I fixed it. I'm using a different server. So I'm going to blur out some of the shares that I have. So let's try that again. And we want to choose this folder here and hit next. And I'm not using playlists, so we'll go forward again and finish. Now you can see down the bottom here, you can see that we're scanning the library, and if you click there, I think it pops up a window that says what's happening. And I've just gone back to the home page. And it's finished. So let me plug in the amplifier and we'll play some music. Okay, so here is the Raspberry Pi. I'll plug in the 3.5mm to RCA adapter. And you can see here the interface is pretty horrible. I'm looking for a free track which I'm allowed to play. And it has no album tagging. Let's turn the amplifier on. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a little bit longer than expected, so I'll do a separate video for the apps. If you want to get started straight away, Squeezer is a good app. You can find that on most app stores. And if you got something from this video, please like, as it helps me grow. And if you're interested in the next giveaway coming up, then subscribe to be notified of the video.